Hi, in this video we are going to use our newly acquired Illustrator skills to create a floating island flat design similar to the one that you see here. You are going to use the simple shapes that we've learned how to create already in Illustrator to make a complex drawing with depth and interest to it. So it does look a little daunting to start, but don't worry, you'll be able to create this without a problem. Okay, so what we're going to do to start out with is we are going to create our new document in Illustrator. So we'll go to File and New. The size of our document will be 1920 by 1080 pixels. So make sure you choose pixels for your unit of measurement. Don't choose inches because that will create an enormous document. You can leave everything set just like this, so RGB for the color mode. Don't do anything with the bleed. Orientation, we will do landscape. Okay, and hit create. All right, now to start, what we are going to do, and I'll just kind of toggle back and forth between my finished version and the one that we're making, but what we're going to start out doing is we are going to add this background fill color. So to do that, we are going to choose our rectangle tool, and then we can choose the color. So I could either come up to this little color swatch here in the control panel, or I could double click my swatches over here, my fill color, and then my color picker pops up and I can choose the color picker there. I will give you that hex number and you can type it in right here. That information is in your instructions too, but the hex number is AAD6D4. Hit OK. Now we will just click and draw out our rectangle that is going to fill the background, and that's the exact color we want. I have mine set to a stroke, which I don't need, so I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that. And now I'm going to go into my layers and I'm going to lock that layer. So you can see here that this is my layer that I just created. I'm going to lock that. That's the separate layer. This one will show all of my layers together. So I want to lock this bottom one. That way that will just stay locked as that sort of background and it won't do anything. I can't edit that at this point. If I wanted to edit it, I just have to unlock it, edit it, and then I could lock it back up again. Okay, I'm going to hide my layers here because I don't need that right now. What I'm going to do now to start is I will create this what we'll call the horizon line. There's kind of, I guess that would be the horizon line if this were to have one. So what we're going to do to create that is we are just going to create a rectangle. Again, we're going to fill it with a green color. So double click right here in your swatches and you can type in here. Again, this information is in the project description, 00A651. And that should come up with that nice green. We're going to create a rectangle that's approximately 800 pixels wide and 50 pixels tall. So just somewhere around there, if you don't get it exactly that size, as long as it's close, that's all right. So right in that vicinity, right about there. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to center this in my space. So I will choose my selection tool, the black arrow or V on the keyboard. I'll click on that shape. Now I'm going to choose Align to Artboard because I want it to align to my working document here, Align to Artboard, and I will center that horizontally and vertically. So there we go. Okay, so now my next step, we will work on building the lower half of this kind of island shape to start. Then we'll work on the upper half. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with these lightest gray triangles on the bottom. So to create a triangle, I can use my polygon tool or my star tool. I'll choose my star tool for this one. I am going to change the color to a medium gray. I'll give you the hex number again. That is 777672. Whoops. We don't want to do that. So if that's the case, what I just did was I changed the color of the rectangle that I already had. I'm going to step back by hitting Control Z. I am going to choose now my selection tool and then click somewhere in my artboard. That way everything sort of gets reset. Now I will choose my star tool and the fill color. Double click on that swatch right there. Type in that again, 777672. and I will hit OK. So now when I click once, I get this dialog box to pop up. I want to choose 3 points for my star. It's not going to actually be a star, it will look like a triangle, and I'll hit OK. So that's the size that I get. You could change your size in that dialog box. That's not really necessary. You can change it right here. So I'm just going to increase the size of that, and I will pull it down here to the bottom. So again, just to go back to our original, right there, that is what we're looking for. So we need to create some big triangles on the bottom here. So we'll go back to this document, and I will increase the size of that a little bit. So I can hold the Shift key if I want to constrain the proportions. For this, it's not entirely necessary, but you can if you want. Okay, so now I have one original triangle created. I want to copy that. I'm going to hold down the Alt key on my keyboard while I have my selection tool active. And I don't see those arrows popping up, but it should still copy. So normally I would see those, the little black arrow and the white arrow. I don't see it. There you can go. You see it as I move it over. So I'm just going to click and drag that over while holding the Alt key. And there we go. I have 2 of them. I want one more. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, holding the Alt key and click and drag. And now I want to make this center one a little bit bigger. So I'll start out right about like that. I might resize those as I move forward. So something like that, we have a good start. Okay, so now I have those sort of background triangles. I'm going to create that kind of next layer of triangles. So the medium gray triangles, not the darkest ones yet, but we'll go with these medium gray ones. So what I could do is I could, again, click, just make sure everything's sort of reset. I could choose a darker gray color. I'll let you choose I won't give you a hex number for this one, so just drop your color picker down a little bit in value. So somewhere around there, hit OK, and now you can just click and create another star that has 3 sides, so it's technically a triangle, right? I'll move back to my selection tool and increase the size of this, bump that up, and I will start building that layer too. Just hold down the Alt key, copy it a bunch of times. Sometimes I think it's easier to copy it a bunch of times and then resize. So I'll get a bunch of copies in here, and now I'm going to come back in and I'll resize these. Some of them, maybe some, I'll leave the same as how they started. And just because I'm putting them there and in this shape right now doesn't mean that that will necessarily stay exactly that way throughout this whole process of creating this little island. I might come back and edit some of those back again eventually. Okay, so that is that layer. I don't know that I entirely like the way it looks right now, so again, I'll come back and edit those probably later. Okay, the next thing that we are going to do, we'll add these darkest triangles in as one of our last steps. What we're going to do now is we are going to add this sort of hanging grass is what it almost looks like, right? So these rounded rectangles, we'll add all of those right now. And that's a little bit of a tedious process, but all I'm doing, I'll click off just somewhere else in my artboard that way it resets everything. I'll choose my rectangle tool. I'll come down here. And I can either change the color of it right now, or I can draw it and then change the color. So I'll draw it first and then I'll change the color. So double click on the swatch, and then you can type in that hex number again. And that hex number is 00A651. Hit OK, and there we go. I'm just going to copy that. Instead of drawing a bunch of new rectangles, I'll just copy that. I am going to vary the size and shape of these guys though. Oops, I don't want to rotate that. I'll just undo that. So I'll click and move that over. Same thing, hold down the Alt key. Sorry, on a Mac it's the Option key. On a PC it's the Alt key. So I'll just kind of vary the size and shape of these. And this is kind of the same as the triangles. I'll start out with them one way, but I might come back in and edit them a little bit, change the size and shape of them a little bit as I move forward. So I've got an extra one there. I'm just kind of building up some texture here. So I'll do a couple more. know if I like that one quite that big there. Okay, notice that I did leave some space in between some of them. If you leave some space, make sure it's a decent amount of space. Like I would leave at least this big of a gap in between because I'll show you what we're gonna do. Okay, I want to group all of these shapes. So what I'm going to do is, while I'm using my selection tool, I'll click on this first big rectangle. Now I'll hold down my shift key and click on these additional rectangles. Make sure, however, you do not grab any of the triangles. Okay, so now that I have that done, I am going to come up here to Object and Group. I am grouping all of these objects together. Now they essentially work as one object. My next step now, I want to get to my Pathfinder. So I'm going to go to Window and Pathfinder. Then in the box that pops up under Pathfinder, in Shape Modes, I want to choose this first option, which is Unite. So I'm just uniting all of those shapes together, so now they are essentially one shape. Before they were grouped together and they kind of acted as one shape, now they are actually one shape. I'm going to come back here to my direct selection tool, and then I should see that little widget pop up so that I can round the corners. I'm going to click on one of these, and when I do that, I should see that change being made across the board to all of my rectangles. What were formerly my rectangles, now they are just that one big shape. And I think that is all right. I might round that just a tiny bit less. So I'm going to pull that back out just a little bit. And there we go. Now I see these edges are coming off. My gray triangles that are sort of the bottom jagged edge of my island, they come out too far. Out farther than the edge of my kind of grassy area. So I'm just going to nudge those back over. So I'm selecting them using my selection tool and hitting the arrow keys on my keyboard, and I'll just nudge them over so that they fit in that area. Good. Okay, let's look back at our original, and there we go. And you can see on the original, I might have rounded the edges just a little bit less on this one than I did on the one that I'm working on right now. So either way is fine. I could step back and undo this and round the edges a little bit less if I wanted to. I think I'm okay with this for now though.